Now let's get into data analysis using the Microsoft Excel tool. Right now, the Microsoft Excel tool has a dedicated tool where it's perfect for analyzing data, and that is called the pivot table. Right. So many people are not very familiar with the pivot table. But then, if you need to extend your data analytics and your Excel knowledge to analyzing data, that is best done on the pivot table. Of course, the pivot table by definition is a table that is used to summarize, analyze, interpret, and visualize the data. Four keywords that are very important, right? It analyze, right? It summarize, it interprets, and visualizes your data. Those are the things that those are the activities, operations that you can carry out on the pivot table. Now, in this class, I will try to discuss summarizing data and maybe analyzing data. Then visualizing data and interpreting data can now be taken to another class. But then if you see that the flow is moving well, we can go ahead to discuss all at the same time. Now, before you go ahead to analyze the data, what it means is that you are convinced that your data is clean. Because if your data is not clean, you can't go ahead to analyze. Analyzing an unclean data means that you are going to get insight, you are going to get wrong insight. And if you go ahead, or any other person go ahead to pick that insight to make decisions, the decision will be misleading. So look at data. Are they clean? Look at data here. Are they clean? For example, I who is showing you this data can see that this data are not well clean. One of the things I'm seeing now is that numerator is not presented in the accurate case, right? I'm seeing a mix of capital letter and small letter. And also, if you get to this place, you will see that the item prices are not in the right case. In the right cell formatting, right? Item price should be a value, and then there should be a currency like naira or dollar or whatever. So we intend to work with naira. But then what I'm seeing here is a like a string number or needed number. So we need to clean all of that. So starting from here, how do I clean this? This is very simple. I'm going to go straight to it. I'm going to insert a new column, and I'm going to use the proper function to clean it, right? And do this, and now you can see that the numerator is now presented in the proper case, right? So I will I will drag it down and copy. Now this time around, I'm not just going to paste here, but I'll use paste special. I'll paste as a value. And to do that, I'm going to right click, and you will see paste value here. So everything that is there is now here. So I can go ahead to delete the column that I created. So you can see that this is now clean. We have numerator and all of it here. Now getting to this place, look at the way I'll clean this. Right? Two things. I'm going to do two things together. Number one, I'm going to clean these numbers, and at the same time, I'm going to convert it to a value. A price is supposed to be presented as a value, right? So if the data is not clean, or it has these strings, character like we have it here, right, it's most likely not going to be a value. So after cleaning it, it's important to now convert it to a value. But the two activities, I'm going to combine it as one. So I'm going to combine the functions as though I'm using a nested function, right? Look at the way it will appear. I'll say equals to value, call it out, and say clean, right? Call it out and put what you want to clean. Close the bracket, close the bracket. Let's understand this before we go ahead. I'm saying clean G2. After cleaning the G2, now convert it to value. That's what it means. I say enter. and you can see that now it has shown the rightly what it's supposed to show. I have 168.95 naira, right? So I'm going to drag this down and copy just as I did previously, and I'm going to paste special as a value, right? And now you can see that it has been pasted. I don't need this again. I'm going to delete it. Thank you. It is gone. So one of the things that you now see is that the revenue is now showing. The reason why it was not showing initially is because this is not in the right, in the right data type. Now I have done all of that by cleaning it, and it's now showing. Now look at it. Is there any other thing that you think is an error before we go ahead to analyze? Maybe we want to look at this. This looks like a but Asha is appearing twice, which looks like a duplicate, a data duplicate. Data duplicate in some cases error, makes the data unclean. And in some cases, we need to reason along. For example, here, I do not agree that this is making the data unclean. So what this means is that by Asha sold Everwater in the southeast region to ShopRite on this date, and it sold it the item price, it sold the item at this price, and it sold 10 units of it, right? And its total revenue is this. Now on the second row, by Asha sold the same Everwater in the same southeast region, but then to a different customer, KFC. Initially it sold to ShopRite. Now it's selling to KFC, even though it's on the same date and the same price. But then the number of items that is sold to KFC is also different to the 10 that is sold to ShopRite. So it appears here also, and you can see that A is selling to another customer, A&S store in the southeast, right? And the date now is different, right? The price remains the same, but the quantity is sold is different. So that they are appearing twice does not mean that there is an error. I hope that is clear. Now that we have established all this, we can now go ahead to analyze our data. And like I said, you analyze data in the pivot table. How do you access the pivot table? Right, the pivot table is inside the insert tab. Now I am in the insert tab. You can see the group called table, and the pivot table is just somewhere here. Select it. But before then, you will see that it has selected. You can see this moving line here surrounding the cells that we want to work with. That's data, the two ends of the data that we want to work with. So it brings a dialog box to ask you, where is the range? You can see the range already selected, and it's asking you again, should you create the pivot table on a new worksheet or on an existing worksheet? So I recommend that we have it on a new worksheet, right? So you're going to, as soon as I click OK, it's going to create a new worksheet. So I have a new worksheet here. This is now your pivot table, right? Now, first thing, I recommend that you change the name from sheet 3 to call it summary. We're going to have a summary on it, right? That is done. Now, one key thing that you will notice on your pivot table is the pivot table field on the right hand side. The pivot table field is going to help you to know what to do. The first thing you will note on that field is that your column head here are now represented here, right, in this place. So that is why it's always important that your columns are well labeled before you import data into the pivot table, right? Now that we are in the pivot table, what you have there is what will be replicated here, right? If the pivot table field goes up, like I'm going to cancel it at any point in time, and I want to bring it back, right? What you need to do is to come to the pivot analyze table, and here you will see field list. Select the field list and it will come back. I hope that is very clear. Now that it is back, and I've shown you your column heads here listed here. If you move down a bit, you will see 4 important fields: the filter, the column, the row, and the value. These fields are very important. So when you select anything, any of the column head, you select by checking it or by dragging, right? If you check it, the the pivot table will use its own discretion to determine what field it will come to. But you should understand that at all time, if you check any column that has number, that has value in it, for example, the number of item price, and revenue, they all have values in them. If you select any of these, by default, the pivot table will use the discretion to bring it under value. Any other column with different data formatting will come to either column or row anywhere. So you can now drag it to the appropriate. If you, for example, if I select salesperson, it comes to rows by itself. If I need to take it away from row, if I want it to be here, I'm going to drag it there. Can you see? But I want it to appear as a row, so I have it here. Now that I've selected row label, I've selected the salesperson and it is showing on the row. You can see that here I'm supposed to be having salesperson, but it's showing row label. To quickly, correct that, follow me. I'm going to select design, right? You should know that these two tabs that I have here, the pivot table analyze and the design, they only come up because I'm using the pivot table. Once I'm no longer on the pivot table, they will go off and it will stop here, right? But then each time you are on the pivot table, it will present itself because you have more functionalities inside those tabs that you need to work with. Now I want to change the row label to what it's supposed to have, like the salesperson. So I come to design, and under design, identify the layout group, right? And on the layout group, select report layout. When you select report layout, you will see a drop down. So on the drop down, select show in tabular form. I've done that, and you can see that the salesperson, is now appearing, right? Now you can see that the salesperson is appearing. That's fine. Now we want to go ahead to analyze, to summarize our data, because that's what the pivot table is going to do for you. 4 things, like I mentioned, I'm going to repeat it again, is summarize, right? It will interpret, right? It will analyze, and it will help you to visualize the data. Now, summary means that it's going to give you an overview of what you have on the data itself. This is the data itself here on the sales data, and this is the summary, right? Now, selected salesperson, I want to select, let's see, for example, let's see the number of items sold by those salespersons. So when I select this, I told you to come to value by itself because it has number in there. So it means that by Asha, for example, the total sum of items that the guy sold or the lady sold, we don't know what gender he is, right? The total number of items he sold is 585. What it means is that if I come to this sales data, here he sold 10, here he sold 11, all right, here he sold 10, here he sold 11, here he sold another 11, here he sold 14, and that is why the guy has been selling and selling, down the column, right? So the summary is showing us that if you sum all the number of items that Brian Asher sold in the year, they all sum up to 585. You can see that it is summary that is showing. So we don't need to bring a calculator and begin to add them together. It is showing us. If I want to change this property to another, I can come to this. You can see the drop down on sum of value. There is a drop down here. I'm going to drag this thing so that you see it, right? So you can see this arrow. I will select it. If I select it, it's going to give me some options there. You can see value field setting. If I come to value field setting and say I don't want sum again, I want it to count what they sold, right? They sold. The count. Not. I want it to tell me the maximum they sold, maximum value they sold. I'm gonna, if I change to okay, so say the Brian Asher sold 18 at once. There were times that we were saying, let me go back to the sales data, and here I have, here is sold 10, here is sold 17, 11, here is sold 14. So the maximum is sold in one customer is 18. So I can always change those properties in here, right? So I'm going to change it back to I'm going to change it back to some because that's what I want to work with. Thank you. So I'm going to appropriate this again so that you can see the needed string. So you can see that already I am summarizing this data, right? I can see what Christensen Jew, what is sold. Also, the total number of items that the guy sold is 778 and all of that. If I want to dive, drill inside, if I want to drill inside that number for me to see, I can double click on the column and it's going to come in there for me on another sheet, right? It creates it as details. I want to see details, right? So I can then see it. So when I'm done with it, I'm going to delete it. Yes, delete and get back to this place. So you can see how the pivot table has helped me to summarize the salesperson and the number of items sold. Now, if I want to see for another property and I want to keep salesperson and sum of items sold, I'm just going to copy and paste on another cell. So I recommend that you leave a space so that you don't mumble things together, right? If you click outside the cell, of course your pivot table field list will go off. So if you click anywhere around around the pivot table itself, you will see pivot table list shown up. So for this new one, you can now go ahead to say, okay, I'm done with the number of items, uncheck it, and let's see for the revenue. So we can see now that Arnold Co, the total revenue that Arnold Co was able to generate is 102,721 naira. That is when and after selling all the product that is sold. After selling 608 items, his revenue is 102,721, 1,002,721 naira. And same thing for Asha and all of them. You can see that we are seeing summary. So for example, now if this is to be discussed in a meeting, you can pick the performance of each of these guys one after the other and deliberate on it. That's the essence of saying that yes, we are working on the pivot table. Now down here you can see that it has given us the grand total of the total revenue generated, which is 1.351 million, right? So I'm done with that. If I need to see other things, I'll copy and let's say I paste on another separate space like that, and then I want to see more things like I'm done with the revenue, what the guy the revenue they made, but I want to see those salesperson who are the customer that they sold to, who buy from them, right? If I check the customer column, so it still bring it down to the row label, right? Now you can see that Arnold sold to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 customers. He sold to somebody in the A&S store. He sold to KFC. He sold to Mr. Biggs. He sold to ShopRite. He sold to Spa. And that's how you can see for each of the sales persons, right, who they sold for. And I think they all sold to the 5 customers because we have 5 customers in all of them, in all. So they all sold, but then the quantity of what they sold to them and the total revenue they made from selling to them is what is different, right? So I can see the insight straight from here. Now going ahead, let's see more things. So I want to put this down here, right? And I say paste, right? But this time around, I want to compare the salesperson. You can see that I am summarizing the performances of those guys, here. So I want to see the region they sold to, right? I'm just going to select region with it. So I can see that in the Northeast, Arnold Code, gained a revenue of 79,000 plus, right? In the Northeast. In the Northwest, right? He had a revenue of 23,000. And you want to ask question, why is it difficult for him to sell in the Northwest, right? As what is selling in the Northeast? Those are the questions that the pivot table will help you to ask. What is wrong with Arnold Cole's performance in the Northwest, right? Is it because he's not familiar with the people in the Northwest? What would have happened, right? Okay, let's take these okay, we are still good to go. So you can see various questions that this summary is popping up for us. Christian Jew is unable to sell to in the Northeast. He's only selling in the Northwest. Why? Right? Why is it like that? Kelly Isleta sold in the Southwest. He is not selling in the North. Right? So when you get to this stage, various questions will be popping out, and then you want to know how to handle them. Okay, does it mean that we should restrict if Christensen Jude is comfortable selling in Northwest, so let's not give him mandate to sell in the Southwest again, because he's not going to sell. He has not been selling in those regions, right? So let's restrict him to sell in the Northwest. These are the advices that that you get when you use a pivot table as a data analyst. You can see that we are not even creating visuals yet, right? But then we are using the pivot table, to get the summary of the performances of the salesperson. And of course, we can from here begin to analyze their performances as we've been using it, right? So if I come here, let me come down here, and then let me come and take off the revenue. Let's revenue also. I'm just seeing the region, and the product is selling in those regions. So I can now see that Arnold Cole, who is able to sell in Northeast and Northwest, right? In the Northeast, he sold 4 products: Coca-Cola, Everwater, Fanta, 5 Alive. In the Northwest, he sold only Sprite. He's unable to sell Sprite in the Northeast. Why? Analysis is showing it, but then you can decide what to do as a data analyst, right? Who is going to make decision with it? But Asa is selling Coca-Cola, Everwater. He sold all of it only in the Southeast. He didn't sell in another location, in another region, right? So this is data analytics. This is pivot table helping us to summarize our data in just one view. And finally, I'm just going to pick another thing. I hope you guys I hope you get a better understanding to how the pivot table is used, to analyze data here. All right, so I uncheck this, and I come straight to pick product, only the product, right? I'm going to pick product away. I'm going to salesperson away, and I'm going to bring in the revenue. And we can see that the revenue generated from Coca-Cola alone is 306 naira, 344 thousand naira. On Everwater, this, and what does this mean? It means that we earn the highest revenue from selling Coca-Cola, right? So why do people take Coca-Cola more? Or if I need to invest more into any of these products, so I can decide that, because I'm making more sales on the Coca-Cola, I should invest more on the Coca-Cola. That's what people are buying the most, right? So pivot table is a very useful tool in making important decisions. We're going to stop the class here because we spend a lot of time. This is about 24 minutes. So we're going to create another time to see how we can now use this pivot table, to draw our visuals and to interpret our visuals, right? And basically, we're going to work with creating a dashboard, an interactive dashboard at that, right? So if you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly click the subscribe button and give a comment. If you have any question based on all we have explained so far, drop them and we'll treat them accordingly. Subscribing to our channel will help other people to have visibility into these short classes that we rendered in there. Thank you once again for your time. Have a good day.